Hello there, Yamato. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well. You sound great. I was
Oh,
worried when you told me you're going to be at the airport. I appreciate you taking the time.
yeah, sure, no problem. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of your work and everything you have been doing for the scene.
Likewise, likewise. I know. I read your post, and the CBLOL community was very vocal about having you on as a representative to talk about the topic further. So I'm excited. I just need to fix up the overlay real quick, and then we just get into it. One moment, brother.
Sure, sure.
All right, let me fix it. I'm not the tech savviest person, but I think I can piece it together. When's your flight leaving?
In about 7 hours, 6 hours. It's a long connection.
Oh, damn. All
Yeah,
right, all right.
and then I'll have another 11-hour connection in Frankfurt. So yeah,
I see, I see. What made you
the
choose
stretch.
the destination? How come Iceland?
I mean, I've always wanted to go there. Me and my girlfriend, and we almost did uh, get there when MSI and Worlds was played in Iceland, but
Okay,
obviously COVID restrictions didn't allow us to go.
I
But
see.
well, now I have to go on vacation. Way better.
I assume is it the same for you as in for everyone in esports that we need to be convinced 10 times to go on vacation, or are
Yeah.
you do you know how to take breaks?
Oh man, I don't know how to take breaks. I mean, when I worked at Riot, it was way worse than what is right now. But I mean, sometimes you get a dark day here and there, and maybe we can enjoy the city that we're visiting. You know how it
Lovely.
is.
Of course, of course. Lovely. I think that I fixed the overlay. No, I broke it again. Give me one moment. I have to fix it one more
No
time.
problem.
All right. I think I moved you to a different monitor and then everything fell apart. So forgive me. All right.
No problem.
Okay, my Streamlabs is not cooperating. One
Did
moment.
you had a nice LPL stream?
Oh, it was fun. It was fun. The usual business. I enjoy watching all the major regions, and I'm heavily considering also starting to co-stream the CBLOL, considering it looks like it's going to be the last season, and to prepare, of course, for the next year. Um, I,
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of co-streaming the finals, and I was very pleasantly impressed by the attitude of the Brazil fans. Because in a lot of cases, when I'm critical of teams, a lot of passionate fans they become very defensive. You know, I've had run-ins with, for example, the Spanish fans, sometimes the French fans, and they are also very passionate. But the Brazil fans were like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
we know, but this is what we live with," and I respect that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a passion that maybe, and that's one of the main issues that probably you're gonna talk about because the reactions of the Brazilian community drew attention from like maybe all around the world and especially LCS. But it is what it is, man. We're Brazilians. We're so passionate about our teams that it gets frustrating to a point.
All right, all right. I think this is the perfect time to start. I will just ask people in the chat: is the audio good? Audio good for everybody? Let me know, because my audio in my ears is different from what they hear. Because I have like this battle station here, but I don't even know what I'm doing. I have a bunch of buttons. All right, then we are good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined by LeonButcher. Am I saying this correctly?
Yeah, it is.
All right, Butcher is a very interesting name. I guess the boys they were inspired by you with Billy Butcher.
Yeah, everybody said that like I took it from the boys, but man, I came like since 2010 with this nickname.
They
So
copied
man,
you.
I'm the original one. I'm the original one.
I wanted to ask you, can you please introduce what your work is, what you've done for the CBLOL? Let everybody know more about yourself.
Sure, sure. Well, my name is Bruno. I'm a journalist in Brazil currently, but I've been a member of the community in League of Legends in general since 2011-12. I started playing the game in 2010, and when the we had like the beginning of the Brazilian scene back in 2011, 2012, way before the Brazilian server was created. I was already started to casting games of the Brazilian community. I worked previously like as a hobby, as a football or soccer caster. So it was kind of natural to take this experience, then join it with my esports passion, and then I started working on CBLOL. I guess the first two CBLOLs back in 2012 and 13. 2014, I joined Riot, worked there for 4 years and a half. Then I left Riot, joined the media press coverage of CBLOL and sports in general, not League of Legends, but mainly focused on League of Legends. So that's where we've been for the past 6 years now. Damn, some time.
Time flies when you're
Yeah,
having
man.
fun. I can imagine. In the beginning, back in 2011, 2012, esports. How deep is the history of esports in Brazil? Are there other games? I know that in CS and so forth, there's been a lot of explosions recently. But how has the esports growth been in Brazil in general? If that was the beginning, or did it begin earlier than that? What made you believe in it, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been passionate about games and competition in general. And then when you get both of these things combined, you get sports. But I think in Brazil, the the beginning of everything was Counter Strike 1.5 and 6. We had great teams. Me, MIBR, which popular CS team. They were world champions back in 2006, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, the SWC. And they were like one of the first teams in Counter Strike to be world champions. So that was like the kickstart of the Brazilian spotlight worldwide, so to speak. But after that, Brazil went from a phase of its own culture that we call it the death of the LAN houses, right? The golden age of the LAN houses, or PC banks, as they call it in Korea, uh, because broadband connection came to Brazil that made internet publicly available for everybody at a lower price. So
Hmm.
that killed the PC banks and made people have better internet connection at home. But the esports scene took a while to get back on track from passing on from the LAN houses to personal computers, right? So that started in maybe 2010, 2011, and League of Legends was right at its beginning, its infancy. So it took charge of the scene, as well as Counter Strike coming back when they passed it to Counter Strike Global Phase as well.
I
But
see.
yeah,
I see.
FPS.
Okay, FPS. It was the same for because I grew up in Sweden. I used to play 1.5, 1.6 myself. It was the only Counter Strike I played, but I was so young back then. I wasn't aware of anything that was happening globally. I just saw the classic CS pros from Sweden, Heaton and Spawn, and these were my
Damn.
guys, and I was out of the loop. It's interesting. Sometimes I miss the good old days of just. The LAN parties, the rawness of
Oh
before it was
man.
even called esports. It was just let's bring our friends together to play games, move your computer. Because we had DreamHack, which was
Yeah.
the epitome of like nerd fest, but everyone just brought their PC and everyone mixed their smell of sweat in the air, drinking Monster Energy drink. And now it's changed. Now it's changed for sure. I
Yeah, and something that is it's actually very cool about Brazil and like Counter Strike and some older players that you still see on CBLOL today, especially BRTT, is that this I would say passion, but it's more like this way of like screaming and teasing your opponent while while playing the game, while playing on stage, like screaming and getting up and then pointing a finger at his face. While you guys are in the game, that's something that came from LAN houses, from playing and provoking your friends, and they brought that to the professional stage back on the early days of Counter-Strike, and that is still today present in a lot of players that lived that age, but not the younger one.
I'm happy to see this energy carried over, because I've only had two experiences when I saw something similar myself. I was at a LAN party, like an event in London, and the Call of Duty players, they were sitting in front of each other, and for some reason the tournament we were also in front of each other, and I was very inspired, and I remember watching the after movie video, because this was like back in, I believe, season 3, and I just listened to myself screaming really fucked up shit at the enemy as I'm laning against him. But there's something very, let's say, human about that level of passion and engagement, you know? After the game, it was shake hands, all peace, but in the moment, it's a driving force. And then the second experience was, of course, when I was in Fnatic, I played against Loud, we played against Loud, and we lost. Right, we lost against them.
Oh man!
I remember after the game, I was very angry, you know, because there was the whole bicep with the bot gap, you know, like, and I have to sit in the interview area and I have to wait as the AD carry is taking pictures with every single one. Laura is taking pictures, Shox is taking picture, him flexing his bicep. I'm just standing there waiting for my interview. It was painful, but that kind of pain. It left a memory in my mind, because the next time, if we ever face up against Loud again, I would prepare if my life depended on it. You know, I would want to destroy them.
Oh man, and that's like the epitome of Brazil, because sometimes guys are just waiting for like one opportunity to highlight what the fuss is about Brazil outside of the game, you know, and that's something that is outside the game. Dude, Brance wrote that probably before the game, absolutely before the game, right? But to have like the balls to do that during a game, that's something that is like, that's really Brazil, you know, because he might have fed and lost the game, but you know, that's something that happened and he reacted to it in the moment, lived the moment, you know. And I think Brazilians, they live the moment in various situations way better than we might have think. And yeah, if we thought about it better, we wouldn't do such things. But I mean, let's just live in the moment. Sometimes about living the moment.
Do you think that I think that when you risk, like you elevate risk, right, by talking shit, and
yeah, sure.
It's incredible that both, as you mentioned, in 2006 that MIBR won the championship, and then I know that there's success in Counter-Strike as well. Considering the resources and also the player bases and how a lot of things are stacked against you, what do you think this is the main advantage, that the Brazil players are used to playing under such level of pressure, and they intimidate enemies at the point where they play at these bigger events? Because most Western players or Eastern players maybe are not used to this level of intensity. Or why do you think they manage to become outliers in a game where, as you mentioned yourself, it's like, internet wasn't widely available back then?
Yeah, I think so. From an outside perspective, it's kind of hard to understand why Brazil works the way it does, especially talking about competition, because if you have to say one thing about Brazilians, it's that they're passionate, they're intense, and when they join like any game really, be that MOBA, be that FPS, be that like virtual soccer or anything like that, you have to expect them to scream, to be intense, but also to these adrenaline peaks also might interrupt their line of thought during a game, right? So that's also an disadvantage. But I think it's more about like our culture and like the common Brazilian experience in life. It has like a lot of trouble, you know. We're not like a poor country, but we have a lot of we kind of are a poor. I mean, we're a development country, but we have a lot of struggles when we talk about like economics and our place in the global politics, right? We try to lead where we can, but we have to do things by ourselves. We can't depend on anybody else. That makes us kind of isolated from the rest of the world, be that graphic, be that in the experiences we've been living. That makes us resilient. I think that's the main word that Gaules is actually streamer, the CS streamer, he tattooed on his hand, right? Resilience, because Brazilians have to be resilient if they have if they need to go through anything in life. So yeah, I think it's all about resilience and the way of living for Brazil. It's not only in esports or sports at all. It's about life, it's the way of life.
All right, all right. That's very, very powerful. As a
Sorry about
follow-up.
my broken English.
No,
As
bro.
well.
Your English is very, very strong. Like, don't worry, don't worry. It's very, very good. I wanted to follow up. Someone told me that the stream got muted one moment. I'm just checking. Is
Yep.
everybody in the chat? Is the mute stream okay? Because I was told that the stream got muted. Your English is very, very good. No worries at all. No, it was only one chatter that was muted. I got scared because I've had issues in the past. All right. Okay. As a follow-up, I wanted to ask, in terms of pursuing esports as a valid career, depending on the country, is very, very different. What is the experience for, let's say, a young player, a young person that would want to pursue it in terms of access to things? How easy is it? How would that build up go in Brazil? Is something that's frowned upon? Like, how is
Yeah.
it viewed? Like in general is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I mean, culturally, I don't think we are having many problems with like parents telling kids like, you guys won't play, you guys won't like work with this kind of stuff because it gives you no future or anything like that. I mean, you have to understand that Brazil is a country where football for a lot of families, since kids are kids, sometimes they're like expected to go well on football or to throw everything they have on football, and also all the family's money and work, even if they don't have money and they can't have work, to try and the kids save the family, in football, because we are a poor country. So in esports, I think it's culturally more accepted because and you need like to be more stable financially and socioeconomic, so to speak, in order for you to enter esports, right? So that already puts like a lot of social issue aside, right? So parents usually, when talk with like young players generally say that their parents usually give them like 1 year, try it out and see if that's what they want. Like, if it's a dream, they're gonna give you 1 year. You have to try your best. If it doesn't work out, you're gonna quit it and you're gonna go to a university, a regular job, and things like that. So it's culturally accepted. Generally, I cannot speak like for every single case, but that's talking about players. When talk about like other professions involved, there are like different pathways, and it's not always easy. But generally speaking, for players, that's the
Okay. I wanted to follow up with the story of the development of CBLOL. Most minor regions, of course, I think most minor regions are struggling. It's like, I think in regards to how esports works, I think the lack of geographical attachment in most cases makes it very easy to support the biggest teams, the biggest stories. To be a fan of T1 is something that you're not really closed out to. In traditional sports, usually you support your local club, your countrymen, and so forth, and there is a clear association in terms of your own roots. And I think in terms of most minor regions, whether it's Oceania, Japan, or any other minor region, I think most of them are struggling, because I think most fans are, of course, watching the biggest teams, the biggest competitions, very naturally so. In regards to CBLOL, I saw and I was reading that CBLOL went through their own struggles in terms of finding their own groove. Can you take me a trip down memory lane of some of the challenges that the CBLOL was facing, maybe pre-franchising, post-franchising? What revived CBLOL in terms of the interest, and what were some of the challenges that CBLOL faced along the way?
Sure. I think we have three clear area eras CBLOL. We have the pre-studio era. We're talking about 2012, 2013, and 2014. Riot created the Brazilian server in 2012, and then 12, 13, 14, the first CBLOLs. We didn't have splits back then. We just had like one big tournament, a single bracket, and qualifiers to get to it. And that was it. And when we talk about this, you can understand how like out of line was when Kaboom beat Alliance back in 2014.
Yes,
we didn't
yes.
have split. We didn't have a studio. We didn't have like a league. We didn't have anything at all in order for them to do that. Just out of passion, you know.
Especially after the legendary LEP, the LEP results. It was
yeah,
the same
man.
tournament.
Like the 0-16-3, you know, that's a meme. Still the telep. We call it telep right now when someone just dies after teleporting. But well, and then we have this like the second era, which is kind of like the professionalization of League of Legends in Brazil, because it was back in 14 to 15 that Riot created the CBLOL studio. We had like a regular format with like regular splits, and also it was the year where how can I say, traditional media outlets started covering League of Legends and esports in general, because in 2015 when Pain Gaming beat INTZ in the second split, in the finals of the second split, it happened in a football stadium.
Oh, damn.
And you have to understand how important this is in Brazil. It was like the amphitheater of a stadium. So the stadium have like 40,000 capacity, and the amphitheater inside it has like 10,000 to 12,000 capacity. But it wasn't a football stadium, so it was very, very emblematic, you know, to have the finals happening there, and that drew a lot of attention to esports and to League of Legends, CBLOL as a whole. And we had these big stories, these big players. You know, we had Kami, we had BRTT, we had Revolta, and a lot of struggles, a lot of like classical teams and classical players. And they played until like 2017. Yeah, around 2017. And we had like 2015 with Pain Gaming and BRTT, and then 2016 we had like INTZ, which was called like Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, right? Because they were invincible in Brazil. Then we had like Revolt and INTZ beating EDG in the first game of Worlds 2016. So we had like these huge stories, and Brazil seemed to be going to the right place, you know. And then something went wrong, and we're not like completely sure what went wrong from 2017 onwards, but things started to get really, really weird. I mean, it started off well in the first split. We had like some great teams. INTZ split, and they had a lot of knowledge about macro plays in Brazil, and they spread that knowledge when they broke off one another.
Yeah.
But then we had this. If you remember, we had in 2017 a meta change where we had like Mordekaiser or like AP carriers on the bot lane, if I'm not mistaken, or was it?
This meta was in 2018. I remember it because I was suffering from it. This was the reckless benching era, 2018. 2017 was the Arden Sensor year. So maybe it was 2018? Or
No, it was 2017, but it had like a huge meta shift that fucked a lot of teams.
Could be Arden Sensor, because this was Arden Sensor
Arden Sensor, yeah, it was. I was forgetting the name in English. We call it Dribble, right?
Okay.
but it was Ardent Spencer, and a lot of teams a lot of great teams got like fucked really hard because of this change. They went bad on the second split, and then the guys who had won the second tier of Brazil in the first split, they won the CBLOL in the second one, which sounded like a Cinderella run, right? But
Oh.
actually, it wasn't our best, And then from that point, things started to get to go down in a downward spiral. And together with that, Brazil was always rivals with like Turkey and Japan and Russia and things like that. But these regions, they have access geographically and like latency wise to other better regions, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
Brazil started to get far behind its main rivals in an international competition, which sounded like Brazil was not finding its foot on the international. So that's kind of like the dark spiral in Brazil from 2017 to 2020. And basically, when we get to 2020 and it is pandemic, right? Brazil was in a really tough spot because we weren't advancing on international stages. Players that were like huge stars in Brazil, they stopped playing. Teams started to get like kind of weaker. And then we had the passage from 2020 to 2021, franchise, the franchising system, right? In an attempt to like give teams more space and time to be, sustainable and create projects for the future and be better, right? So the question is, would the audience follow? Because we were going downwards on the audience as well. And that's when Baiano and a lot of streamers and co-streamers and these guys who had stopped playing and were big stars, they started reappearing on streams and calling the public, the audience as well. And then we started to see the community driving what CBLOL is. That's a huge difference between CBLOL. That's the main difference between CBLOL and other leagues around the world, Yamato. You have to understand this. CBLOL is not driven by results. CBLOL is driven by the power of the community. For the community, they rather have no Brazilian team playing at Worlds and have a strong league and the league that they can call their own. They don't give a shit about international results, although it's a good indicator of what we're doing. It's in the right path, right? But they rather have all their teams. They rather have their stories that they've been building since 2012. They rather have everything that they have helping to build since 2020 mainly. Then having one more spot at Worlds and maybe two Brazilian teams will go and maybe we have more opportunity to play against other regions. Maybe, teams will be financially sustainable. Fans don't give a shit about that. Do you follow football? Which team do you support?
I haven't followed football since I was quite young. Like the last time I was paying attention, Ronaldo was playing Manchester United still as a young one. Chelsea was winning Champions League with Didier Drogba, so I'm a little bit out of the loop. But you can try me. Try me.
Yeah, that's a great example. For example, Manchester United currently they are 600 million pounds in debt. Now, if you ask a Man United fan if they want the team to sign more good players at the expense of more money, and they are already in debt, they say yes. Yes, man. Why they would say yes, even if their team is fucked up in 6 million pounds in debt, because they're fans. They don't give a shit about the economic sustainability of the. You can't ask fans to understand that. And that's a big problem that is happening, and that's a big problem for me as well, because since I work in the scene and I've worked at Riot, I understand how the teams work, I understand the sustainability factor of everything. I understand why Riot is doing that, and Riot knows that it's doing like what they think it's best. maybe the format could be different, and you could like argue for some different things. But from the fan perspective, from the fan side of things, you can ask for it to be rational when it's not about rationality, it's about passion.
It sounds as because most regions, as I mentioned before, are very top heavy in how their fan distribution is. It seems like in the era before franchising, it seemed as if that would be a way better time to cut some of the Brazilian teams, because it seems like the top end of the spectrum in terms of teams, they had the majority of the fan base, and the purpose of everything was to compete, and all of the big players and the winning teams were the ones that were drawing the most fans, and the historical players that had that history. And looking forward now, you mentioned the franchising. I wanted to just ask you, how conscious was the idea of this commitment? Was it something that naturally happened in the community, or was it something that just naturally happened? Because the CBLOL is so unique in terms of the viewership distribution that the Loud, as a team that is winning the league, is the fourth most viewed team, and the viewership distribution is so even, which is unlike any other league. It's not even close in any other league. So was it a conscious decision? How did that process go about? Was it just a natural case of, oh, this guy's buying a team, I want to buy a team? But these two are buying a team, it's a good opportunity to buy a team, and all of a sudden you have 10 storylines? Or how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, from when we joined the franchising system, if I'm not mistaken, 6 teams stayed on CBLOL, or was it about 5? I don't remember correctly. It was about 6 to 7 stayed the same, and 3 new ones joined it, and Loud was one of them. Actually, Vivocade, which is an organization that has been playing on CBLOL since 2013, they didn't enter the franchising system. They just joined it last year, and it was a huge shock for everybody because Kid had like a lot of history in CBLOL, be left out, right? But anyways, so a lot of teams they just like remodeled and renamed through teams coming and going, but they inherently took titles from and history from some of the past teams that they joined this spot, right? That's one example for Los Grandes, which came from Team 1, which came from like Flamengo, So it's like it's a story which is about 2 to 3 organizations maybe, and it may come from just this year or last year, Los Grandes, in this example, or back to 2017 when Team 1 won the CBLOL, It's kind of the same story, only in different phases. But then you have like Pen Gaming, which has been playing on CBLOL since 2012. You have Loud that joined it as a huge, like massive fan base organization. They came from Free Fire. They were like treated as the content organization. They didn't have like a good competitive plan. They were just like huge on social media, and then they like didn't make a good plan for the first list. And then they said, we don't want to be the joke anymore. We don't want to be like the content organization. We're gonna be competitive. They changed the whole structure inside the team to create better squads, right? And then they were champions on CBLOL 4 times in a row. They won the Valorant champions as well, right? They are a huge successful organization currently. So you have like a lot of history, and obviously something that is very cool in Brazil is that how can I say, players are like pro players. They also draw a lot of supporters for the teams that they are playing, right? So BRTT is historically a player for Pen Gaming, and if he leaves Pen Gaming and goes Kate, for example, one of the things he did in the past, he drew a lot of supporters to Kate, because they like it BRTT playing, not only Pen Gaming.
Of course.
But they still like Pain, but they love BRTT, and now they like Kid as well. You know, so it makes is as players connect all of the teams together. You know, and that creates like this great hive of histories in Brazil. The players being like the bees, like connect everything together. You know.
I see, I see. No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned Riot in their decision. You began to talk about the financial sustainability. Just to loop everybody in that is listening, in terms of the changes that are coming in 2025. Basically, they want to combine CBLOL and LLA as well, together with North America, the LCS, to make it the Americas region, basically cutting 2 LCS teams, adding 1 LLA team to the North Conference with 6 LCS team, 1 LLA team, and then 1 Tier 2 team, meaning that you can qualify through the Challenger system for 1 year, and then you have a relegation system, which is a big, big one. And then on the other side, of course, in terms of the CBLOL then is expected to cut 4 teams out of their 10 teams, adding 1 LLA team and also 1 Tier 2 team. Just so everybody is looped in on those changes, and then eventually both conferences will play in a playoff that will then distribute the qualifications for the World Championship and also MSI. So the CBLOL side has 1 MSI entry, North America loses 1 MSI entry, only have the single one, and then additionally there will be 3 world spots in the Americas region, 1 guaranteed for each conference, maximum 2 for each conference. So now that I've laid that out, I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the Riot side and their argument. I have seen a lot of discussion in terms of the negatives, in terms of how it can impact, and I'll ask you that question too. What do you think can be the upside of these changes for CBLOL, if any?
I think mainly the positive outcome is to turn organization project in order to be sustainable. You know, we know that teams operate like deficit currently. That doesn't make it for a sustainable ecosystem, right? So that's one thing that I've been not only me, but a lot of people in the community have been pointing out is that maybe we could have the CBLOL as it is currently, you know, but maybe it would die in 2 years. It didn't change anything. So changes needed to be made in order to make the ecosystem sustainable. If that's gonna be made, we can't like wait for it to happen in like 1 year, because that's 1 more year of an operation that we already know that it's not working, you know, and that it's not sustainable, and it's fucking over teams' budgets and everything else. We already know that there are teams that are broken right now, you know, financially wise. So you can't delay it even more. You know, that's just more risk of you know, before teams start to get weaker and weaker, and then they don't want to have like an academy roster anymore, and they don't have money to pay for a wellness staff and psychologists and physiotherapists, you know, and then, you know, in order to at least have a roster to play on CBLOL, it's not worth, you know, it's not worth all this sacrifice just to have a team on CBLOL. So the upside is that makes it for a more sustainable operation in the whole ecosystem. Obviously, you have all these new formats which can give us more opportunities to play against other regions. We just have like 2 currently. We'll have the third international event and 2 more opportunities to play against the North Conference. You know, if we win our conference as well, let's not forget that there is a Latin American team as well in the South. But that in a good spot, we could have like 5 different international experiences for our teams here in Brazil. We still have a lot of other negative points about it, and can enter them later. But international experience, financial sustainability, and I think that pretty much sums up the good points in the perspective of the community.
Okay. Something that crossed my mind is it seems as if it would regress back to the second era that you mentioned, where things will be more measured in terms of the success, in terms of competition. And that will be inherently difficult, of course, to compete against the LCS that has more resources and are capable of spending a lot more on players, of course. And I don't know how much in terms of player basis, in terms of how much the access is there, but I imagine that the LCS with the resources should be able to create more powerful teams. Like the South Conference will be, of course, the underdog when it comes to those matchups. But in that, some of the import rules are also changing, of course, in this system. Do you think that the spirit of what you have described of the CBLOL in terms of how everything is a hive mind, every team is cared for, and the community in CBLOL truly care about the league itself in a way that I haven't seen replicated in other regions. Do you think this will be the biggest pain point, or do you think that Riot is taking advantage of the fact that the Brazil fans are so passionate that the hive mind will continue to live through the 6 teams that will still be active?
I think there's no biggest pain point than losing 4 teams. That's just like everything comes like together when we say we're losing 4 teams, and we don't take that lightly. You could say to us you're gonna lose 2 teams. You can say to us you're gonna lose 1 team. People still are gonna be outraged because it can, like, in our minds, it can't be taken lightly. We were talking about like Manchester United and in depth and that, and if I take fans in Premier League and I say like I'm gonna I don't know take Manchester United out, Manchester United fans are gonna be gutted, and maybe some Manchester City fans will be gutted because their rivals are gone, and maybe the Liverpool fans are gonna be gutted because Manchester United and Liverpool always were always like battling it out for who have more English Premier Leagues. So it's not about taking one team out. It's taking a part of the hive, that is connected to every other team and every player and every crowd the same way that any team could. So it's good. It's gutting, to be losing 4 teams. And we cannot they don't take that lightly. It's impossible for Brazilians to take that lightly. And that's not the same thing that I see, for example, happening in North America. When I look at North America, that is like a results-driven region, as it is most of the world. If they lose like 1 team, 2 teams, maybe they were sustainable in the league. They didn't have like great players. Yeah, it's okay. It's gonna be tough. It's disappointing, but it's okay. In Brazil, there's no sentiment like this. They're taking a part of CBLOL. That's nothing can replace it. So it's a really tough call, and I know that, and I believe Caco Antunes, which is the head of League of Legends Esports for Americas. He's Brazilian. I worked with him. He joined Riot back in 2016. He's a great guy. He's a very competent professional. And he said on an interview with me, we did it on Thursday, about 1 hour and 20 minutes of interview. I brought all the community's question as well as mine and my sports journalism questions, and one of them was, what would happen if it was the opposite case? If NA had like the viewers, if NA had the audience, and Brazil didn't have anything, would you guys do the same thing? And he pretty much said that the region would probably have even less teams. So in a way, everything that the community has been doing since 20, since 2012, more specifically from 2020 onwards, that they saved the scene. They literally saved the scene, Yamato. We wouldn't even have like 6 teams. We would have like 2, maybe 1 team. Maybe it would be like Valorant. Two Latin American teams, 2 Brazilian teams, and the rest is in NA, and we will be playing in NA. We're half of the region. That's a big win. That's a win that the community won.
I see. I see. I'm curious in terms of the highlights of the interview, because that's something I wanted to bring up. In terms of what you covered in your interview that you did, what are some of the highlights that came up? What can you share in terms of the perspective of the decision from the head of esports?
Yeah, I think the main point was that it was not, even though CBLOL is a success league, that it is going to change. The reason that CBLOL is a successful league through the community is that the change wasn't more brutal than it already was. That's the main point. There's a lot of doubts from the Brazilian community on how the tier 2 is going to work, because currently we have 14 teams, in the academy system. Every single team in Brazil chose to stay with their academy project, the tier 2. That's great, because we've been blessed with having a lot of talented young players that have been playing on CBLOL, have been, gaining a lot of attention and playing very well. And it's a brilliant generation that we will have for the future. And if the what Riot does the tier 2 isn't development focused, we're afraid that we're gonna lose that. That is also a part of CBLOL. That's also a part of our story. And when you take the tier 2 and you say to the tier 2 teams, we won't give you any financial, right? Won't sustain the second tier, right? Just the first tier with the global revenue. Then you say to the tier 2 teams, your winner is going to CBLOL. It's going to the first tier. That's not a league. That's not a development focused league. That's a results driven league.
Yes.
And so the development comes second. So what's gonna happen is from 30 spots that we had for CBLOL, we're gonna go to 12, like mandatory ones, right? Then you have like the imports one and the Americas spot. But and what's gonna happen to a lot of players that don't fit the tier 1? They're gonna go to the tier 2. Also a lot of imports maybe on tier 2. And what happens to the young folks? What happens to that 15, 16-year-old boy who had like 2 years maybe to develop on the academy system in order for him to play on CBLOL? He won't have 2 years, Yamato, to play and develop in a team on the second tier, because it's results driven. It's results driven, and it also creates another problem, because from what Kaku said to us, the head of Sports for America said to us, is that the guest team that is going to be selected for by Riot this year for the next year, they're going to win the same revenue pool as if it was a franchised organization, right? Now, how can the champion of tier 2 next year compete against a team that has been earning money from the GRP the whole fucking year? It's a huge gap. It won't happen, and so we have a lot of doubts on where does the development go? What happens to the academy teams? What happens to the inclusive champion? That the LGBTQ community and women can play, have better spots. That's also a big thing in Brazil, and that we pressure Riot to have and to give give attention. What happens to it? You know, so there's a lot of things on tier 2 that we are very keen to understand what's gonna happen, and Riot didn't give any conclusive answers about it.
I feel like that's the scariest part, because in a sense, where when short-term decisions are being made for short-term gain, it seems like the soul of products and environments and situations are being lost in the process. And I feel like when spreadsheet decisions are being made, like the just for the sake of the short-term profits, because everything, in a weird way in esports, everything is determined by, oh, we did this for 1 year and now we can determine whether the system was a success or not, which is a very strange way to do it, because there's so many factors at play that determine viewership and success and so forth. And I feel like decisions are often made based off of very arbitrary evaluations. I wanted to add, in terms of the point of the soul, like the concern is, like you mentioned, that you go from 30 secure, guaranteed players from Brazil and the tier 2 system to now 12, and you're moving in the direction where everything is going to be results driven, and you're in a situation where you are results driven in a situation where you are competing against the LCS, who have more resources at hand. So over time, you will face that same issue where most minor regions face that issue, where are you going to watch, like if the purpose of your region is to be competitive and that's what you want to watch and that's what you want to engage in, why wouldn't you then just support the strongest teams globally or the strongest regions globally? Of course, there's a sentiment of supporting your players, but in the way you describe it, it just seems like tier 2 is going to become an environment. It's almost like a parking lot. You know, it's like the CL system over in North America. It's kind of like a parking lot where they're just waiting for some of the players at the top. It's like it's used as a sub system almost for your teams to just sub in players when they are ready to play, rather than a developmental ground. Of course, there's outliers, and for example, Cloud9 of old, or let's say Team Liquid with how they brought up APA, and of course, Eon. But those are outlier cases, right? And I feel like that's the biggest concern, that in this process, the CBLOL will lose its soul, which is such a... like with everything I've heard and the community reaction and reading your very, very powerful empathic post in terms of the general emotional feeling of what the CBLOL is, I think you delivered that beautifully. I guess it leads me to the next question, because in my mind, if there was a situation where LCS wants to benefit of what the CBLOL has built and to create a synergy, how, like, if you had the keys, how would you manage such a merger? Is there a world where maybe CBLOL could have maintained all of their teams and still have like a playoff conference and then you move? Is there a world where that could have happened? Or do you think that the issue, as you mentioned before, that the sustainability of some of the teams in the long term will drive the league, let's say, off a cliff in a sense?
I think that actually we asked Kaku about it. It was like the format was final, if there was like any other opinion. Actually, there was like the first 18 questions I've made through him was from me and media part of my Sports, right? And then other questions, we took it. We invited people from the community to ask, because it's only fair, right? And this question was from a person in the community, Jogster. Actually, he's 3 times champion of CBLOL for INTZ, and he's currently positional coach for INTZ. And he asked if there was like no other way, and Kaku said as well, no, there was not any other way. As a Brazilian, I'm talking as if I was him, obviously, but as a Brazilian, I know that I wanted to have like the minimal impact possible on CBLOL because I've felt it. I know the history. I've worked with you guys. You know, I know how you. Obviously, people didn't accept this answer as they didn't accept most of them actually. But I know that there is like passion involved, and maybe some questions, some answers were actually very good, and people should reflect more on them, and not only let passion dictate this kind of situation, you know, because it is very very tough. Brazilian teams and teams in general in esports, they are in a very tough spot financially wise. I don't know if you've seen the report about T1's debt last year.
Oh,
Did you see that?
I missed it. Could you share that with me and whoever's watching, please?
Sure. So T1 was world champions last year in 23, and they closed the year 45 million reais in debt. That's about $8 million in debt, even though they became world champions. Just this debt of T1, 45 million reais, that would pay the whole year of operations in CBLOL of the 4 teams that are below. Just T1's debt would pay that. So we are in a really tough spot, like financially wise, and if people in chat and that will be watching this watch closely to traditional sports as well. Teams usually operate in debt because that creates for better tax interest for them as well, and it's because most of this debt it's about short-term debt. You know, it's loan, it's player salaries and things like that. Because teams like that in football and in NFL and the NBA, they work in a sustainable league, like a league that has been going for a long time. It's a successful league. It has like a great audience. It has history, and it's not something that it's gonna die 2 to 3 to 4 years, which is the case for League of Legends. So teams in esports cannot operate the way that traditional sports teams operate depth-wise. You know, it's a risky business. It pushes back sponsors. It pushes back the developer. You know, so it's a really tough spot, and because of that, because Brazil isn't sustainable, even though we have like huge audiences and things like that, we're not sustainable. Sponsorship wise, we're not sustainable financially wise at all. So some things have got to change, and that's the. I'm so fucking conflicted, man. It's like it pains me to say, and I'm not an emotional guy, I'm not an emotional guy at all. I work with a lot of emotion. I like to write text with a lot of emotion, but it's tough for me to feel them myself. But after I wrote that chronicle that you've read about the death of CBLOL, it passed like 1 to 2 hours, and when I started reading people commenting about the text, it got to me. I felt tears. I've spoken to I've spoken to people who I've spoken to people who work in the scene as well, and they said that, like, man, I've cried 2 times. People from the scene, casters, and a lot of people, felt it really hard. So it's hard to say that you understand the financial aspect, the sustainability of the scene and everything else when it hurts so much from a fan standpoint.
No, I can only imagine, like I from my side, like I am very pragmatic with my approach, and my initial reaction, I can, for example, in my commentary in regards to the LEC, I say that the league would be better off if two teams were removed. And in that process, there are people that are going to lose their jobs and players are going to lose their spots. But in terms of how viewership is often driven in leagues that are driven by just performance, it's just a question of, you want to have the big matchups of the big teams face off against each other no matter what. It's like the producers in the back room, they are praying that G2 and Fnatic make the finals because of viewership records and so forth. And now KC and Ibai is in the picture too with Mad Lions. So there's maybe different interests at play, but in that regard, it's very, very easy to say. But CBLOL is truly special. And where I wanted to go next in terms of my thought process in terms of building on this further, I was very surprised that this is something that I think it was something that was predictable, because I think the discussion around it was that people saw this coming, but I didn't necessarily feel like that it was a concrete leak or an expectation of when it would happen. It was kind of like the writing was on the wall, but there was no big news articles. It wasn't leaked. It wasn't talked about, because usually the word travels very easy. So I wanted to ask, in terms of the shock, you mentioned it in your written words as well, that it was something that was quite sudden in terms of how everyone is informed. I'm curious how. Like, did anyone know? Did the team's owners know? Were they aware? Did they know anything?
Yeah, from what Kaku told us, from the past 6 months or 5 months, they have been giving hints and telling to the owners and directors of the organization below that we're contemplating doing this and that, but nothing like really specific. It's not a new subject, but like they didn't know anything at all. And then not this Thursday, but last Thursday it was 6th of June. Eric, which is Mais Sports' CEO, chief editor at, he joined my call, and I knew that he was having a call with Riot. And then, as I said it on the text, he joined my Discord room, and then he was like extremely confused and catatonic, and I already knew that what had happened. And then we had like a chat with Riot the next day, the following day, Friday, and then Riot said to us, the teams are just gonna hear about it on Monday, and Monday, this Monday, right, 10th, and the public announcement would be on 11th. So teams had 24 hours to understand internally what they were gonna do, and that's a huge problem. And I think you can understand that.
Yes.
Not only, and I don't think Riot was, necessarily mistaken, because as a media outlet and as a journalist, I understand that the confidentiality is something that is really important in this regard. In a subject like this. Coincidentally or not, the day that teams were informed was Monday, when we started hearing some things about this change on Twitter. And obviously, not everybody had the same information, right? People were saying that we're gonna merge and then we're gonna play in NA, and it's gonna just be 10 teams. There's gonna be just one Brazilian team. That's why Riot wanted to hold the information, maybe from the teams, right? It was what Kaku Antunes said to us in his interview as well. Obviously, that creates like a lot of problems. I've been talking to players, and then a lot of players said that there were teams that spoke to the players on Monday. There were players that were got to know the information publicly on Twitter when Riot announced it, and that's a problem as well because it it affects the integrity of the tournament, because the tournament that they've been playing, Yamato, is like right now it's the last split of CBLOL, and we have a lot of Brazilian players, and the next year just gonna be 12 spots for Brazilian players, like mandatory spots, right? And 18 if you count the Americas slots. That's 12 players that are gonna lose their jobs. Between having less teams and then having less spots. So this tournament that they are playing right now adds a huge factor of pressure that they have to perform, or maybe they'll be out. They won't have jobs next. How can Riot say that it won't affect the integrity of the champion? It will. It will. Players believe that it will, and I believe it as well. It's impossible to not factor in the additional pressure that they're gonna have, and how that impacts the team, and maybe the team that they are playing in, It's being talked that this team might not make the cut, and maybe the team can make the cut if they win the CBLOL this season. And now the team also pressures the player because the team needs this spot next. So that's an additional pressure in the additional pressure, So they're playing with the, as Carol just said, they're playing with a gun in their hand. It's a very tough situation, and one that Kaku is specifically talking about the way that Riot announced it. He admitted that it was a mistake, and also I also questioned about something that I'm not sure if it's the same expression, English language, but we call it smoke screen, because at the same time that these changes were announced in the competitive scene, the trailer for Arcane second season came out. A lot of changes came out in the game. Faker skin came out all in the same time. How can you tell me that you're not diverting attention because you're fucking up CBLOL? That's a really tough spot, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe they wanted to package a lot of changes in a single communication. Yeah, but you didn't pay the attention on in which way these changes would affect players in Brazil. Players in Brazil were so frustrated, as I said. They're sad, they're angry, and now it seems like, guys, you're gonna lose 4 teams. You're gonna lose, a lot of spots for players. But here's the season 2 of Arcane. Here is Faker's skin. Here is, we're talking about like people losing their jobs here, people losing the teams that they're supporting, and you guys are talking about a lot of things different, So it's a bunch of things talking about like the announcement that were really frustrating to see, and the impact of these changes and the way it was announced in the integrity of the champion.
No, that's very understandable. It's also I imagine that a lot of the people that are working at these organizations, they probably plan their life around the job that they are currently having, and currently, as I understand it, there is no decision made about which team, as you mentioned yourself. It's like they're fighting for the contention of the slot, and that adds a whole nother layer of confusion in terms of what the decision-making process will be in terms of deciding which 4 teams will be cut. Because the LCS situation was very easy. There were 2 teams that wanted to be out. They wanted to get out of the league, to make the league, because their situation wasn't sustainable in terms of their finances. And that's a very, very different dynamic than what's happening at hand. As far as you
Can
know,
I give an example?
Of course.
Yeah, I'll give you an example about like Liberty, right? Liberty is currently the like one team that people are saying, if one team is gonna be included, Liberty. Liberty is a development focused team inside CBLOL. So from last year to this year, they changed the whole system that they operate. They were like spending a lot of money, and then what they did is, let's not invest necessarily in huge players and huge wages. They they took all their money and invested in developing, in having a great coaching staff, having a great academy team, and having like a great project outside of the game, to develop not only Liberty but also the whole country, the whole system, the whole players from other teams. They did a boot camp in the last year. I think it was November or December. I don't remember correctly. And they invited teams from players from all the teams. And they said, like, we've paid all these coaches, all these physiotherapists, all these sports psychologists. You guys can come talk to them. You can make like a boot camp in 2 weeks boot camp, the middle of your guys' vacation, so you guys can come better for next split. And that was also for players from the other teams. So they took this spot in the franchise system of CBLOL, and they said, like, okay, maybe we won't have the money to be the team that is always gonna play for the championship, play for the top and win trophies and etc. Our goal will be developing players, developing Liberty, and developing the scene. Now, tell me if you would think that any organization would have this posture playing the LCS. I don't want to win. It's not that they don't want to win. It's not just the focus is not just the result. Is, as I said about CBLOL, it's not just results driven. It's about community as well, development, looking for the future. Creating sustainability through talent. Through new things in the future. So then you can say, like, okay, but Liberty was like last 2 places in the past 3 to 4 splits, and they still have orders, like a lot of fans. They are still in the top 10 there. They're like very close to every other team. The role that Liberty plays currently on CBLOL, crucial of CBLOL, future talent, future players. How can and then you take Liberty out because of their results? If everything that they do aren't results driven necessarily, so there is a story like Liberty for every single team in Brazil. It's not just results driven. That's what I've been saying. It's about development. It's about fandom. It's about community. It's about history. It's about INTZ. They're the biggest CBLOL champions, and they haven't had a successful split. They've been the last 3 places below the past 5 splits. They don't have money. We already know that they don't have money. They don't have sponsors, and they're still the winningest team in the history of CBLOL, and fans still support them even after all these years. So it's impossible to just look at results and make a choice about who you're gonna take out, who you're gonna eliminate for the America's franchise only based on results. And Riot knows that. Kaku said this to us. They're gonna look to the past 3 to 4 years of CBLOL, which is the franchise era of CBLOL, but also they're gonna pay very close attention to the stories in the community, to every single thing that CBLOL has different than other regions. It's the least we expect them to.
Okay. It's very, very tough. Very, very tough to measure. I feel like in other leagues it's a lot easier to measure, but with things being so close and the storylines being so intertwined and at the same time unique in their own way, makes this a very, very tough task. I wouldn't want to be in the position to first and foremost be forced to make this decision and then to follow through on it. It sounds like a very, very tough proposition. I wanted to ask because You mentioned it yourself. It's like a lot of teams were operating in the negative. In a world where the CBLOL would be intact, you run the risk, of course, long term that maybe CBLOL is not sustainable. Do you think that there was a path to, let's say, salvation for the CBLOL within itself, considering its growth and considering its success in the most recent years? Is that easy for you to imagine how the financial side could be figured out without, of course, this massive merger and the cut of 4 teams?
As current things stand, it would be very, very difficult to understand CBLOL being sustainable. In a world where we would like retain everything we have and we were sustainable, results wise, tough to say. We already expected, for example, Loud to be better for worlds like for MSI actually, and for worlds less split. So, but you saw what happened.
Yeah,
It's a pity we still don't know what happens when Brazilians, go to the international stage. Not only Brazilians, but also the Koreans representing the Brazilian region. People, the same way they support Yamato, they criticize and they maybe are a negative force when guys go there to represent Brazil, because if they win, they're heroes. If they lose or they do like a crazy play that goes wrong, they're like the meme of the century. It's a tough spot. I understand that pressure that comes with playing and with beating. But yeah, I would imagine that Brazil would be in a far better place than currently is right now. It's, as I said before, not very easy. But for Brazilian fans, they don't want to worry about money. They just we want to live in a perfect world where we don't need to pay attention to money. Just the stories that we've created and everything that we love still being here. And unfortunately, that's not a reality anymore. I'm sorry. Did I answer your question?
No, I would say so. I thought of a follow up right away in terms of what you said. So in my mind, I guess I empathize with the story and the passion and a lot of the things that, of course, will be lost in this process. But I guess the main question, like the bottom line question, with all the information that you have now, I feel like that you are the best person to ask. Do you believe that the decision is rational?
I believe the decision is fully rational for Riot. I think that they have the golden card in their hand, which is the financial sustainability of the league, of the teams, and the future depends on this sustainability. So, in the end, and that's something that was hurtful to watch Brazilian fans realize, Brazilian community realize. In the end, we might have saved Riot's league, but it's Riot's league. Riot has Riot is the owner of the product, the owner of the league, and they have to make calls that will save the league, the teams, and its future if that's what they believe in. So ultimately, it's not about what the community wants. It's about what the league needs. That's a call that Riot has to make. As a professional, as someone who lives and works with esports and cheers for everything, supports everybody for the past 12 years, I understand. As a fan, I'm not in a rational position to debate this. I'm in a passionate position to debate this. When we talk about passion, we won't talk about discussing. we'll talk about only being passionate, which is what fans are. So I think it's gonna hurt. We're not in a position to say, guys, don't worry, or guys, don't feel betrayed, guys, don't feel angry, guys, don't feel sad. We're gonna feel all this fucking, if someone doesn't understand, let Brazilians feel what they feel. Let we feel what we feel, and things are gonna come together. That's the main thing for me. I think it's gonna be gutting. It's gonna be sad. We're still angry about it, but it's gonna happen either way. So let's hope for a better future. Let's hope that the teams that stay in the franchises achieve their sustainability. Let's hope that the teams that leave CBLOL still stay in the scene through Tier 2. Let's hope that Riot makes a way for the Tier 2 to work in a sustainable way, and that develop talents as well as have competitive side because of the guest slot, right? And in the end, we're all hoping for the best, and maybe not optimistically as people would want us to understand, but that's just about Brazil.
I see. I see. I wanted to touch on what you mentioned before in terms of Riot. They've put themselves in such a powerful position because they carry a lot of data and information that no one has access to in terms of like esports is obviously a very successful venture for them. I think there's examples of, for example, on the Blizzard side where they mismanage their esport titles, especially like back in my old days, there was World of Warcraft Arena and also Warcraft 3. I think that they mismanaged the World of Warcraft site, even though it had a lot of potential. And I think that they didn't see any benefit from actually running their tournaments. But in terms of how League of Legends is, you can clearly see with the driving force behind Valorant to push it as an esport that Riot sees a lot of benefits in terms of the advertisement that goes through esports, in terms of the skin usage and in terms of how it drives sales. I think that we can all deduce that it's very, very profitable and very, very beneficial for Riot to be driving the esports because, of course, they are burning a lot of money to run the events, run the productions, and so forth. The monetary gain must be from the skin side. And Riot has positioned it themselves where they own the game. Like no one can go and start their own league. Like CBLOL can't say we're independent. Screw you guys. There's no way for like it's not like a traditional sport where like for example in Saudi Arabia they can just make their own golf league. They just decide like there's no golf gaming federation that says no, you guys can't, like you're screwing up our own league, you don't have the permission, I own golf. Like there's nothing like that, and Riot is in such a powerful position because in a lot of things we just need to blindly trust them, and I think that's the harsh reality. It's like we have to blindly trust that Riot is making decisions based off of this data points, and then you kind of just have to hope that it plays out how they imagine, because obviously it's at their best interest to keep things sustainable. To move on to a, let's say, more like a more positive view, is what do you see as the best case scenario in terms of how things play out in the long term?
Yeah, I think it's about teams achieving sustainability. I think it's about we still see the teams we like and love on the tier 1 or the tier 2, but not leaving the scene completely. We see new teams and past teams that didn't make the franchise system coming back to the tier 2 to play and compete, and maybe fill a role that maybe not all teams have maybe 20 teams on tier 2. Maybe not all 20 will be fighting for the title, the spot, the guest spot, right? So maybe we can have some development focused teams. Riot was, and that's something that Kaku said in his interview. Riot was very, very, very surprised that a league like Academy League in Brazil worked not being results driven, because Riot doesn't, for Riot everything would always be results driven competitive, and Academy in Brazil isn't results competitive, results driven. It is development, and that's a huge thing. I can tell you because I have these numbers for an article that I was writing. We had since 2020, the passage from the franchise system to until today, we had 59 new players below, all throughout Academy playing on CBLOL. So that's development. That's a great part about Brazil. That's something that would hurt a lot for us to not have anymore, not see anymore in the scene. So, and we think we have space in there. And Riot was so surprised of the success of Academy in Brazil that they are discussing internally how can teams in the Americas South conference still have Academy rosters, even though they couldn't win and play because teams and things like that. But maybe they can have like an Academy roster for development only. I don't think I don't know if that's something for America South only, but Riot is thinking about it, because something very strong in, and obviously with sustainability and things like that, we can have like better players, better teams representing us. And let me not forget something about NA and Brazil, which is about the dollar worthing 5 times more than our currency, Brazilian real, because it makes it so fucking easy for an American team to pick up the best players in Brazil and import them, makes the South Conference weaker. They won't be paying a huge wage. If I'm not mistaken, and that was something that Ranger from Ilha das Lendas, Baiano's stream, he brought to attention. He said that if I'm not mistaken, the biggest yearly salary for NA was something around $900,000. Man, that's a whole fucking operation for a team in Brazil for a year. That's for just one player in NA. And NA teams, they can pay $20,000 for a top Brazilian player. How can Brazilian teams compete with that? Their currency is worth 5 times more than ours. So it's something that worries Brazil a lot. How can we compete with NA if they have like more infrastructure? They have more GRP pool. Probably because it would be probably because of the international competitions and whatnot. But also the currency, the power of the dollar and the Brazilian real. So it's something that it's really worrisome for Brazil in the future. We don't know how we're gonna make it, but if we have development, if we have all these things, maybe we can still dream about beating NA once in one championship or the other.
Yeah, I'm feeling maybe it's naive, but I guess the hopeful side would be that if the conferences are supposed to be working together, then you kind of want the financial influence of the North Conference to work in synergy with the passion and the drive of course, the Brazilian community. And I guess the hope would be then that through that, if the distribution of the funds that are generated through everything are evenly distributed, that it will create, let's say, more fair baseline. That maybe through this, a wealth can be secured in the CBLOL that it would be higher than ever before. But the issue still stands is that we will never have any visibility on anything in terms of how everything is generated and how much money is actually being made off of things. And once again, we're left in this position that you have to kind of blindly trust, because I guess the only hope is that CBLOL will reach new financial heights so they can actually compete on that level against, of course, the Americas, North America. And I just, the skeptical side of me is very skeptical in this moment in time. It's
Yeah.
hard to imagine that the most positive outcome is the one that will occur. I have kept you now for 1 hour and 30 minutes, and you have been very, very insightful. I am very impressed with how precise Twitter was to mention your name, and I'm so happy that you reached out to me in regards to this conversation. There's two things I wanted to cover before I let you go on your vacation. I'm taking your time, as once again I feel so bad that I am
No problem.
pulling away from you now as you're at the airport. I appreciate that super much. I wanted you to really hammer home the point. In a world where 4 teams are lost, in that process, you mentioned that there is one team that everyone expects to be out, and then the measurement of everything else. I wanted to give you the chance to really elaborate on if in your mind you know which 4 teams could it be or not be, in terms of what is going to be lost coming into the next year. We have touched on it, we've talked about it, but I wanted to give you the chance in the podium to really hammer it home for the audience, for me as well, to really, really have a clear understanding of what is being lost in this moment.
Yeah, it's a tough spot, because it's not a tough spot. It would be a tough spot if we would be not be losing 14. Losing one team is gutting enough. Losing 4, it's an unbelievable situation where the things that we treasure the most are more close to the human being than the business side of it. When we talk about losing 4 teams, we're talking about losing players, we're talking about losing coaching staffs, we're talking about losing backroom staffs, social media, we're talking about video makers, we're talking about physiotherapists, we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about a whole side of stories of people that we don't know about, of people that won't have their voice heard, and people that we won't see in the people that won't be here in the next year. We are talking about fans that won't have a team to call their home anymore when they open their computer, their cell phone, and watch CBLOL stream. Their team won't be there anymore. We have a home there anymore. They won't have friends, and they won't have rivals to tell their stories and laugh and cry about anymore the weekends. So it's not just about finance. Fans don't care about finance. Fans care about winning. Can care about their teams, care about their players, care about the stories that they have been making since 2012. And it's very, very emblematic that not only the format is changing, the teams are being cut out, but the name is changing. CBLOL stands for something that is about the community, it's about passion. Changing the name together with the teams, together with the players, emblematic because it changes everything.
Mm.
You know, CBLOL is about all these stories that we've been talking about for the past one and a half hours, and even more that we've been doing, we've been living. You know, so that's really gutting to see. It's really sad. It's really angering, even though we understand. We we I understand the side of business, but it's not just about business for us. You know, more about passion than what it.
Okay, okay. No, you've made the position of the CBLOL fans very very clear, and I appreciate that super much. It's been a very very interesting conversation. You are very very in tune, and I appreciate that you can see both sides of it, and you are a professional through and through. I wanted to give you the opportunity to add if there's anything that we've missed or anything that you want to maybe promote or anything really. Is there anything that we didn't cover?
No, I just wanted to thank you, Yamato, for giving me this space. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. I've been very humbled to see so many people commenting my tag, my name on your tweet to talk about CBLOL because I've been living it for 12 years, and it's not about all these years that I've been covering it and living it and working in it because when I open a stream, I'm one more viewer, and if you open today CBLOL stream for the first time in your life, you're also one more streamer, viewer. Sorry. Uh, so the impact that we as a community have, it's because of what we do together. That's what CBLOL is about, and even though we're gonna change for next year and it's gonna be a completely different thing, we still have, 2 to 3 more months to go. So I urge the international community to come and watch CBLOL. Come and watch our stories. Come and watch our players. Come and watch our teams. Come and understand and talk in a civilized way for everybody involved, not only foreigners but also Brazilians. Talk in a humane way because it's all about passion. It's all about League of Legends as well. So let's get together in this moment and not, find ways to break us more apart. You know. So yeah, that's my final message. And thanks everybody. Thanks everybody on the chat, and thanks again, Yamato. It's been a pleasure.
Truly my pleasure. I thank you once again for taking the time. I wanted to end the note on my side that I am very intrigued. I feel like passion is something that is so obvious. I think that's what made it super clear to me. It really piqued my curiosity to understand the situation further. I had a very good interaction with just co-streaming the finals together with our Dominate because he's been telling me about how the Brazil League is so fun and how the fans interact with the product in terms of their honesty and how genuine they are. I find passion to be so infectious. It's like sometimes I've watched blacksmithing videos and the person who talks about it is so passionate about what he's doing that I'm just sitting there just watching what he does, and it is the most infectious thing ever. And the CBLOL community, it's so evident that everything is driven by passion. So if I will reach out to the homies at CBLOL, hopefully I can do some co-streaming myself because I'll be watching the league, and my curiosity is very piqued, and now I feel bought in. As the story unfolds, I hope that with this decision that it will get to the point where the South Conference will thrive, and whenever they are matching up against the North American teams, I will cheer for them to beat them. With some kind of vengeance in mind, and
it's gonna catch fire, dude. Holy shit!
and you said it yourself. You said it yourself. It's like you guys are, you have resilience ingrained in you, and this will be another test. This will be another test. And,
I sure hope for NA that the first time that NA that the conferences play against one another, it's not in Brazil, dude. Because if it is, you're gonna have to come and see it in person, Yamato.
Honestly, I can almost make the promise that I will. I will plan around it, and I'll make the trip out unless anything is in the way. I will have to come up, and you'll have to show me around.
I'm already expecting you here at the airport.
Lovely, lovely. So once again, thank you very much for your time. I wish you a pleasant vacation, a good flight, safe travels.
Very much.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I wish you all the best.
Bye, guys. Thank you, Yamato.
And please don't be a stranger. We can have another conversation in the future. I had a lot of fun speaking with you, and you're a very, very smart man. So all the best.
Yeah, sure, man. All the best to you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.